think about the typical federal income tax filing deadline on a normal year is April 15th. So, as an example, let's use Jessica. Jessica files her 2018 federal individual income tax return on February 28th, 2019. So, she's ahead of the game, right? She's ahead of the ball. She's filing her return early. She's not waiting until the last minute, not waiting until the deadline to file that return. The original unextended deadline for tax year 2018 to file that return was April 15th, 2019. Now, let's consider that she later discovers an error in her favor, which means she's now going to claim a refund on that 2018 return, but she's already filed that return, but she wants to get that refund. So, for purposes of calculating that limitation period under 6511, her 2018 return is actually deemed filed on April 15th, 2019. So, in other words, any return that is filed before or up to that filing deadline is deemed all filed on the same day, which is that deadline. This is actually good for the taxpayer because think about it. If we're talking about a 3-year limitation period for when that return is filed, then that would disincentivize us from filing early, right? Now, there are plenty of issues with filing early, but one of them should not be having to worry about the refund statute of limitations. So essentially, what 6513A does, in terms of thinking about statutes of limitations, is help us equalize everybody that filed on time. There's no penalty, in other words, for filing early in terms of being able to later come back and claim a refund. I mentioned the postmark rule earlier. This comes out of Section 6502. A claim for refund is considered timely filed if it's postmarked and mailed on or before, but then delivered after the end of that refund statute of limitation period, that limitation period. So it's important to keep that in mind. If you're working with the taxpayer that has a claim for refund to file, and you're coming up on that end date, that RSAD, then it's important to consider whether you're going to be able to get that claim in on time. You might be in a situation where you know it's not going to be delivered to the IRS on time, but if you can get it to the post office and you can follow the rules in Section 7502 and the associated regulations, which is essentially you want to send that certified. If you can get it there and get it sent certified and get it postmarked by that end date, then for purposes of Section 6511, that claim has been filed on time. So Jessica, in an example, Jessica files her 2018 federal individual income tax return on April 15th, 2019. She later discovers an error in her favor, generating a refund. She mails an amended return from the post office on April 14th, 2022. Now, this is in fact, this is just a day before the end of that 3-year limitation period. It has been just a day under 3 years since she was deemed to have filed her 2018 tax return. Except it doesn't arrive at the IRS office until after April 15th. In other words, if she did not follow the rules of Section 7502, IRS would have received that document and said, we got it late, it doesn't count. However, if that envelope is postmarked by April 14th, 2022, and it meets the other criteria in Section 7502, then that claim for refund is considered timely filed. So again, we're used to dealing with this with extension filing, for example. We want to make sure those paper filed extensions are in the mail and postmarked by that original due date. This is a very similar rule to that.